Welcome to the first episode of Isle Prelude's The Lost Tapes, a series dedicated to pre-release, scrapped, and old content that was created prior to a finished Isle Prelude entry. I'm the series creator and your host, geraldgunr, and today we're going to cover the group of mercenaries with their dedicated movie, Alpha 1. They are part of B Corporation's PrivSec division and are one of two most prestigious squads in the system's history, but they have quite the history to go through since their inception. There were quite some different things with them, from earlier designs to depictions of them to Maxwell and Mila only have one eye, Jackson forgot to shave, and they have a dog? There's more to it than that. Because they were the first set of characters created for their movie and the whole Isle Prelude series in general, they had quite the list of developments. And what's better to start off this segment with our main protagonist and so-called unsung hero of the team, Maxwell Spotter Lin. Maxwell started off under the basis of a young, naive, and upcoming mercenary of an elite force. Maxwell's character in concept stayed almost the same in the final product, though he had quite the changes. He was always meant to be the stark contrast for successor, boasting heat visions, having a personality that separates him from his team, and also having a different rifle. He was simply designed after the modern spotter, and initially he was far different. His hairstyle remained the same, boasting the short trekkie hair. He always boasted the squiggly mouth that came from the mysterious face, which is on par with his skittish, improbable, and curious personality. The eyes never expressing anger but sometimes panic and boldness, though there are parts where he does actually express anger through his goggles, are also part of this character's identity, even though you don't really see them that much. They're just the heat visions from the original Isle, and as much as they are practical to fit onto the character, it really doesn't look too visually appealing, since especially it's a movie made in Blender. There was another set of goggles that came from another old project of Sharp Edge, and they came from, for lack of better names, a character called Night Vision Goggles. The only difference is that I got rid of the face, clothes, and limb assets and recolored the lenses to red as opposed to green. Though, that design never went through because it didn't give in to Max's personality. Eventually, the final design has been settled with the Crimson Night Vision Goggles, not only having bigger lenses, but 3 of them. And they ultimately became the most recognizable part of his design, which overshadows his generic buzzcut hair. Before he got his silver finished polymer battle rifle, he was originally going to use an assault rifle, the same one that one of the prisoners used at the generator's fight scene. This as at one point one of the defining separations to the modern spotter, since he used a more modern iteration of the battle rifle, but ultimately it was instead reverted because the real life gun it's based on is nicknamed the Black Matt Mouse gun, which is literally a derogatory nickname for its weak performance, toy-like design, and in general the issues plaguing the design back when it was in service in the 70s. Totally befitting for Max's personality, right? In addition to his personality, it was quite the rocky road. Max's earlier depictions showcased him ruthlessly bludgeoning a prisoner with his battle rifle, and that's about as violent as he gets. There really wasn't much of an explanation to why he was a pacifist or so-called pacifist, other than he sees life in human beings. There's really not much else to add to this, so I added a twist and an explanation to why he acts the way he acts. Remember that he saw a dead prisoner by the hall before he went to his meeting? Yep, that's him, the one who's causing it all. Nicknamed Albino Stan, or Unknown, this mysterious creature has been lurking inside the mind of the kid since the beginning of the plot. Unknown's depiction in Alpha 1 is mostly unexplained in general, but from what I can say, he's mostly accurate to how he acts in the game. With Unknown out of the way, that's all there is for our young adult hero. Max's aspiring journey wouldn't be possible without his mentor, childhood hero, and adoptive father, Axton, seeing the potential from the son of a legend. Axton Commander Reardon is like the stuck in the past type of guy, and little known fact he's 54 years old, the oldest character of the main 12. Yeah, he's treated the Alpha Squad like it's still alive and kicking, and will do whatever he can to keep its legacy afloat. Axton hasn't gotten a lot of changes in the early stages, but I can say for sure that he's the most persistent character. He was designed loosely on the real-life actor Ryan Gosling, especially how he looks in Drive 2011, and was a mix of 2 names, Axton from Borderlands 2 and Captain Reardon from Wall-E. Personally, I would have chosen a better name. One of these original names was Ride the Lightning. His design was close to his successor, though the beret and earpiece are much different. His helmet design was sourced from the Wanted Parts Isle pack, and was somewhat similar and also one-to-one of the original Isle mercs. The beret was actually a UGC accessory and the earpieces are scaled down, and coming back to Isle's commander, those same accessories are different and recolored. That alone not only keeps his recognizable look, but also it makes it distinct and his own character. The shotgun he uses remained the same. In earlier animations, Axton had the charmer hair, same hairstyle as Ashwin, which we'll get into in a moment. The hairstyle alone was enough to age him down a notch. It was also the hairstyle that was used for his younger appearance in his so-called flashback scenes. The hairstyle was changed under the emphasis that if you were to take off the helmet and put Axton and Ashwin under silhouettes, that just makes them way too similar. Additionally, because of the decision to age him up more, it's changed to the blonde charmer to Dapper Dawn. It's also because, like, you messed up stylized hair when you put on some headgear, so... Axton also never wore a vest. Before the decision to create custom vests for characters, he was to remain vestless. This was because in the original free models pack, it lacked the original recolored accessories. And having found out said accessories, a special vest was created for our Elden Legend. Distinctly, Axton had written on his vest 1 of 5 and had a B on the back of it. Character-wise, Axton was extremely persistent in terms of writing. He treats everyone, besides Maxwell, in a rough, serious manner. And who can forget his biggest fumble?
What did you say to me?
Axton is extremely loyal to both the contractor and his old hero Shun-Lin. Needless to say, that had been what he was written on. The major difference was that back then when he was younger, he had a girlfriend and another part of life he wanted to look forward to. Though at one point, Axton never had a girlfriend since. Oh boy, Jackson Gunner Wickham Jr., my personal favorite and most developed character of the squad. Yeah, he's been fighting over the fact no one besides his true love Mila believes that the Allen monster exists. B Corp censorship and brainwashing hella worked. Character-wise, like Axton, Jackson's character bases remained roughly the same. His hairstyle and skull mask were always there since his inception. I can't really put too much on what was originally in his old design, but the one defining part was that he forgot to shave. Even then, it's probably for the best since his personality and background has been reversed. Otherwise, he toted the same old original look with the same old gun. Where his character had changed was especially important. Originally, he was going to be that one irredeemable side character, who was always mean to everyone because the world never revolved around him to begin with, and the fact that Stubble paired with the original design would speak volumes to what he was in general, and wasn't married to Mila. I revamped his character to coincide with Mila's character revamp. He's happily married to his lifelong best friend and moral support companion, and he's still a little too ticked off. But not as much as what he was originally going to be. There was some old background stuff like when Jackson used to be a football or hockey player and had stepped down from sports to become a mercenary in response to the death of his father. The father is still killed off, but this time Jackson dreamt of being a scientist just like him. The fate still followed there and I could clearly tell you he's still around, lurking, just laughing at his son while he continues to keep denying the truth. In the original draft of Alpha 1, his fate played out differently. We all know that he got neutered by the anti-material cannon, but one original draft was that Mila dies and Jackson witnesses it, and he tries to explain to Axton that the monster was real and the latter still denies it. The other involved keeping both Jackson and Mila alive, sleeping together before they got woken up by the monster, which killed them both. There was originally going to be a scene with a camera recording all of it to show Axton its proof of existence. It didn't make it in because, someone did not place a makeshift camera at docks. As much as these two would have been his fate, the first one never made it because it was made when Jackson was still that irredeemable side character. And while it is possible, a character rework had shut it all down. The second ending was also as dramatic, but guess who came in to shut down that possibility? In conclusion to this segment, Jackson is one of the few characters of the main cast to nosedive in his overall personality, becoming somewhat less bitter, but hey, wherever he's at least he's not alone. Mila Medic Romanov, the second most sensible of the bunch aside from Maxwell, but he pampers almost everyone. Mila's backstory and her character was almost extremely different, and so was the fact she was missing an eye at one point. Mila's design was as simple as it is in the final product. Prior to the inclusion of her signature purple medic armband and medical kit, the only major difference that she used to have an eye patch, which was a separating factor from Medic's original design. But overall, Mila was still a very separate character. Mila is always there healing Jackson's indignance. Before the several rewrites, Mila was originally not going to be married to Jackson, and was instead going to go down to her mother's reluctance to be deployed onto the island.
No, Mother, I'm sure this classified mission isn't that concerning. After all, you're calling me at least 3 times this week over this. I'll let you know when I'm okay, eh?
There was a lot to this arc, but not enough to be given significant screen time. While I was rewriting the story, I concluded that Mila's mother is not going to be relevant to the story and was instead overshadowed by everything else in the plot. So I just kept it as a one-off line as a nod to the idea. After rewriting Jackson's character, I decided to make him more softer and likable by giving him a caring accomplice. Mila was officially engaged to Jackson in the final product, and she's doing her best to keep him and the team alive and well. And personally, I feel it's quite wholesome when the two tell their stories together before they got married. We've got a father and son, and a husband and wife dynamic in the team. Both strong ways to humanize the mercenaries. This guy has neither, but still provides his own humanization. Who could that be? Ashwin Sniper Sink as the last one. Ashwin's design wasn't all too different in both character and appearance. He boasts the brown charmer hair, a face that never smiles, with the lips that scream, "I hate noobs." And he takes himself seriously compared to the rest. The only thing I had to change about him was the design of his sunglasses. Twice. Why, you may ask? Well, here's a dedicated talk about it. Ashwin's sunglasses are a key feature to both his face and his personality. Before the sleek sunglasses, 2 different sunglasses were used. One was the Isle Sniper's sunglasses. With the context of the character, it really didn't suit him. It's too stark of a contrast, and the modern sniper, in my opinion, looks like a dork. The type of guy who'd laugh when you're having a beer with him, paired with his dead smile. Ashwin lacks a smile, so I had to go forward with that. One overlooked fact was that 2 of the original sunglasses, the clockwork shades and the sleek sunglasses, are costly. The latter isn't by that much, but still, it gives Ashwin a luxurious look to him and gives him the humble brag personality. He likes to flex when he's asked to talk about himself. Aside from the copious amount of knockoffs, the clockwork shades are a limited item that would be a little too much expensive, especially for Ashwin's budget. The sleek sunglasses were chosen as I feel they'd suit him better out of the 3. In his general depiction, Ashwin has mostly a quiet, busy life. Everything that embodies his character, from him nominally supporting his family, to having not a lot of lines, remained in the final product, all the way to how he died to a heavy rifle. I'm saying that everything that was there for him stayed with him, and that he made a pretty normal side character. Still proud of him for shooting down that balloon. Wait, I thought we had 5 characters. Oh, there's a 6th member? Wait, that's right, it's on 4 legs and was a good boy. A German Shepherd named K9, or his name, Rolfie. And these dogs are Cyclops, just a personal design choice I like to add. Rolf was originally going to be part of the squad to serve as a close-range spotter and what would be the moral support of the team before the idea was thrown out and no longer canon. As much as I'm upset, as I am relieved it is for the better, here's some little bit of lore for our scrapped character. K9 was conceptualized as a sidekick and companion to Maxwell. Where Maxwell spots at a long range, K9 sniffs out footprints and foreign scents to find prisoners. He's been with the team for a while, and Rolf would express an aggressive look to Maxwell before the latter would go on to save his life, and the two would kindle a close relationship. He would do as he did, find prisoners and good POIs for the squad, but his fate would be sealed by the monster, who tried to fend it off but is killed by it. The idea of a dog to complement the spotter was an idea with a potential and one that would replace the marriage between Mila and Jackson. But to note it down, Isle Alpha 1 was created around the time Isle 9 was released. It introduced the parasites, marking a distinct change in the art direction for non-humanesque organisms. And back then, it was made around the time when animals were indirectly present when Alpha 1 was still in previous state. Unfortunately, the dog was eventually scrapped from the previs and never made it far. All that was left of the dog was the model I created and the notes I made for it. These German Shepherds are going to appear in Tales of the Vagabond as police dogs. And that wraps up the Lost Tapes featuring the Alpha Squad. Overall, I think the strongest changes to the squad were the personalities and depictions of them in the final story. The looks are mostly less prominent changes to them. Wherever they are, the Alpha Squad of the main cast are uptight people who are living up to its old legacy and rightfully amassing the highest prisoner kill count, and I bet Shun's proud of how far it's gone regardless.